Model railroading is a hobby that you can dive deep into, but when you're first starting out, that level of depth can be quite intimidating. So here are 5 things that I wish I knew more about when I first started on Coffee and Trains. Welcome everybody to another edition of Coffee and Trains. Before we begin, I am drinking my last official cup of Tim Hortons of this batch, so I'll probably get some in the future at some point, but I'm going to switch to a different coffee just for the next little bit. And as always, I take it black with 2 sugars. So today I really wanted to go over some things that I wish I would have known when I got started and things that I really had to dig to find out. Some of these are just things that we all know commonplace, but may not be obvious to a person just starting out. So we're going to go ahead and get right into this. Things that I wish that I knew. There are quite a few of them actually, but the first big one is terminology. And what I mean by that is terminology is something that there is a lot of in any hobby, but especially in model trains, because not only are we doing a hobby, we're doing just all sorts of things that are historical, and we're modeling something that exists in real life and all that kind of stuff. But also there are things like DC and DCC. I didn't know what that was, and you had to figure out what that was. The different parts, the different track, like for instance, what a number 4 and a number 6 turnout means, what any of that means, and also scenery materials, what I should be using, and I'll be talking more about that. Now, I actually have a video of terminology for beginners, just some terms that you guys can know. I'll link that right up here as well as at the end of the video. So that is the first one right there. What I wish I knew, model railroad terminology. I wish I knew a little bit more of that. My next one is one that you can definitely actually spend quite a bit of money getting right, because sometimes it takes several layout builds just to get this right, and that is good track plan practices. Now, what I don't mean by this is that there's a certain way you should put your track and arrange your track to have fun. You need to do it the way that is going to be fun for you. But what you also need to learn is what's going to make a track plan good, what's going to make it more fun, and what's going to make it very adaptable in the future. And things like having passing sidings, how to arrange sidings so that they're easier or more difficult depending on what you want to do, to be able to have a lot of fun with your layout, a place for your train to enter and exit the layout, and also what makes a track plan realistic if you want to go that way, and what makes it fun for you. And again, I also have a video for this subject as well. I'll link it right up here as well as at the end of the video. So what you are looking here is basically what makes a track plan good, what's going to make it fun for you, and what's going to keep it fun for you. So good track plan practices, just some things to add into your track plan when you're designing it. My number 3 is a big one, a really big one as a matter of fact, and that is how to use materials. Now, what I mean by this is like there are a lot of different scenery materials that you can use with a model railroad. Just on the one back here, I've got plaster, I've got Sculptamold, I've got spackle, I've got hydrocal, I've got foam, I've got all sorts of different materials. And basically it took me a while to really learn how to properly use those. So knowing what these materials are and how to use them is going to help you out a ton. I'll give you a great example. I said a while back in rock molds, they really intimidated me because I didn't know how to do rocks correctly. I didn't know about mold release when I first started. I didn't know which plasters to use or anything like that. They're going to work for certain ways. So learning those things is something that is very important for getting enjoyment out of this, so that you don't get frustrated with when things don't turn out correctly. As a matter of fact, I think that this subject matter is so important that coming up in 2022, I'm literally going to devote a section of Coffee and Trains each month, so one episode each month, to a topic of how do you use that, so that I can show you how to use certain materials. Just something to help you when you see a material and you see someone using it, or you see it mentioned in some reading material, you'll be able to have a reference, and I hope I can help people out with that. So learning how to use materials is something that can really help you out getting started. My next one is one that still actually kind of intimidates me a little bit, and I think it intimidates a lot of model railroaders a little bit, but it's something that's really you're going to be nervous about doing the wrong thing when you first start, and that is electrical wiring and terms. Now, I do have a DCC wiring video, and I'm going to link that right up here as well as at the end of the video. But learning terminology like voltage versus amps, those are two of the terms you're going to see the most. Also learning what resistance is for when you are either doing current sensing or you're installing LEDs and things like that. And you also just need to learn generally how electricity works to run a railroad. DC and DCC, they work in very different ways. So learning your electrical terminology is something that you really ought to just like take a look at. Just learn some basics, learn how voltage versus amps and resistance and ohms and things like that. Just learn the basics of that, and that's something that's really going to help you along when you are doing your model railroading. The last one, in my opinion, is something very important for someone who is starting out to understand. I think with very few exceptions, this is something that the vast majority of us have gone through and have gone through this process. And that is, my first model railroad will not be my final model railroad. Now, what I mean by that is you are not going to step into the hobby and build the perfect model railroad. There's a lot of learning that is involved. Even when you're watching videos like these and you're figuring out stuff and you're reading tons of books, the bottom line is it comes down to a lot of practice. I'm on my 7th full railroad. I've built a couple other small ones as well. So this is my 7th one since getting back into the hobby. So it is a lot of stuff to learn, and just understanding that you're going to be doing a learning process because you're going to build that first railroad and you're not going to be happy with it at some point. You're going to want to do something else, and you're going to decide, do I need to add on or do I just need to tear down? So understanding that your first model railroad is not going to be your final model railroad is something that's going to help you along, and understand that it's a learning process and you're going to have fun with it for a while, but eventually you're going to want more. So having fun with your first model railroad, but understanding that you're probably going to build more if you intend to pursue this hobby even more is just something to understand. If you want to get started in model railroading, I've got a playlist right up here with some nice starter videos, as well as on the main page of my channel that you can check out if you want to build a railroad right along with me. I've got one called MRR1 that I built, and you can check that out in the playlist right up here. Now, if you know this channel fairly well and you watch this show a lot, you know by this point we're talking about coffees that we're drinking and things like that. Well, today I want to do something a little bit different, talk about something that's very important to me. And it has nothing to do with trains, but bear with me. It's something that may affect someone in your life. It probably does affect someone that you know, and they may not even know it. And just a warning, this is slightly more adult topic, so if you're watching with young kids, you can just go ahead and just stop the video right here. But I want to talk about polycystic ovary syndrome, and this affects millions of women across the world, and many of them don't even know it. Basically, polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, can cause things such as obesity, heart disease, diabetes, infertility, and complications during pregnancy. And this is something that is no fault of the woman who has it. It's a mostly genetic condition. My wife has it, my mother-in-law has it, and my daughter is likely predisposed to it. And that is why this is so important to me. It can really make a woman's life difficult through no fault of their own. So what can we do? Well, there is no cure for PCOS, but there is research that is being done right now. So I want to direct you towards PCOS Challenge. This is an advocacy group that is advocating for awareness about PCOS. This can help notify women to say, hey, you might have this. You should go check it out with your doctor and ask them about this. And that can lead to things such as lifestyle changes and medications that can help mitigate some of the symptoms, because PCOS can be quite debilitating if it is left unchecked. But through those lifestyle choices and through that mitigation, it can really help a woman get her life back from the symptoms that this syndrome causes. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out at PCOS Challenge. I'll put the website in the description below. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. They are listed right here. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. A lot of cool stuff going on over there, plus a model of the month at the $5 a month level. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to check those videos out right after this. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.